Welcome into the Illini Inquirer podcast. Jeremy Warner, Illini Inquirer publisher here. And after a much-needed week off, Illinois football is back in action this weekend with the toughest game remaining on the schedule, at least on paper. The number 23 ranked Illini, 5-2 overall, 2-2 in the Big Ten. They head to Washington, a team with an identical overall and conference record. And for both teams, it's a college football playoff elimination game. Win, and you have a chance to be one of the 12 teams in the playoff. Lose, and you really have no chance. So we got more storylines as well with two of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten, plenty of NFL prospects, and of course, another date with Brett Bielema and his staff taking on former Illini defensive coordinator Ryan Walters, who after a terrible 2 years as Purdue's head coach, is now the defensive play caller for the Huskies, head coach Jedd Fisch. Today, we'll dive into all those storylines. Kim Grinolds of dogman.com, our Washington 24/7 sports site, joins us shortly. He'll break down the Huskies, including star sophomore quarterback Damon Williams Jr., a few star skill players for the Huskies, Walters' defense, and much, much more. Then, of course, Joey Wagner joins me for our weekly six-pack of questions on the Illini, our picks to click, and bold predictions. We'll hit on recruiting as well with Joey. So let's get started. Kim Grinolds, dogman.com. He joins us next on the Illini Inquirer podcast. One play can change a season. One upset can silence a stadium. With every snap, the stakes get higher, and no one brings you closer to the action than DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one sportsbook for live betting. From live betting to odds boosts and so much more, DraftKings Sportsbook has everything you need to stay in the action from the kickoff to the final whistle. New customers, this one is for you. Bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get paid out $300 in bonus bets instantly. Own every Saturday with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code Illini. That's code Illini to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill and Casino and Resort, Kansas, pass-through of per-wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer. All right, happy to welcome in Kim Grinolds from dogman.com, joining us to break down the Washington Huskies and finally get a trip out to Washington first as Big Ten opponents between Illinois and Washington. Kim, thanks for joining us, man. How are you?
I'm good. Just this Big Ten travel.
For you guys, man.
It's like the Michigan guy told me when we were down in Houston for the national championship game. He said, Kim, all of these Big Ten road trips are going to be fun once. You fly somewhere to drive somewhere, and this 3-hour time difference is just a killer when you're on the road quite a bit. So I think it's a lot easier going west than going east. I mean, you guys are playing a 12:30 game in Seattle, which is 3:30 your body clock. We had a noon game back in Michigan, which is 9 o'clock, getting there 2.5 hours before. So I left at 8:30, which meant I got up at 7, which was 4 o'clock my body clock. Yeah, this time zone. I don't care what anybody says. These early starts when you're going east and these late starts. When we played Washington State, for example, in Pullman, later game, and I got back to the hotel at 11:30, Michigan State and USC were still playing.
Yep.
That's 2:30 in the morning, for those Michigan guys. So you guys got a great time to play.
Yeah, we did. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to this trip. It is nice that we only do one of these a year while you guys are crossing the time zones a lot more. But hey, that's what the checks are for Washington and Oregon and all these teams. But very similar teams, right? Despite the difference of distance here, the difference of background of these two coaches, very similar stakes for both these teams coming into the game. What's this one mean for Washington at 5-2, 2-2 in the Big Ten, Kim?
It's a huge pivotal game. I'd say it's a must-win game for Washington. I predicted them to go 8-4 this year. 9-3 would be a great record as well. Washington follows up this game with the bye week, then back to Wisconsin, and then Purdue back here in Seattle, and down to UCLA, and then Oregon at home. And the Illinois and Oregon game are probably the two toughest games on the schedule. I think the big thing is right now with the 9-3 Washington team, if they're able to go 10-2 or 9-3 with the coaching carousel going on out there, Jedd Fisch, being rumored for that Florida job, an alumni there, worked under Steve Spurrier, which is pretty much his mentor. So there's some interesting things going on in the background that could affect this. And speaking of coaching carousel, you think Wisconsin wishes they had Brett Bielema back?
Yeah. Too bad he's got the no compete in the Big Ten. So that's giving some Illini fans some things. I wanted to bring that up with Jedd Fisch. It's year 2 of Jedd Fisch, and he had big shoes to fill with Kalen DeBoer. I was going to ask, how do you characterize this 2 years of Jedd Fisch? But he's kind of been a hopper, and his name is always kind of mentioned. UCLA, his name was mentioned. Obviously now Florida, his name is mentioned. What's the experience been like with Jedd Fisch for 2 years?
I'll tell you how long we've been doing this, Jeremy. We're on our 9th coaching staff since we've been at dogman.com. We're on coaching staff number 9. Jedd is definitely different. He brought in the NFL style mantra. He lives up to it. He spent a lot of money, just for example, on food. He's doubled they got, $3-4 million invested in just food for the athletes, into the food program, and everything's run like an NFL franchise. And when they go to the rev share, he's got the cap like a NFL franchise where your quarterback's going to get the most, your long snapper's going to get the least. And, he's an interesting guy. I think he's really smart. I think he delegates really well. He does call the plays, but he's pretty much involved on the offensive side of the ball, and a guy that very, very well, Ryan Walters, on the other side of the ball. He just pretty much lets him run things. So, Jedd, was a coach down in Arizona, and he did a good job in his last year there. He said he wasn't going to move, but when he said he was locked into Arizona, but when they proposed the pay raise at Arizona to take to the Board of the Regents, they said no. They said no. And Washington, I think it was $4 million a year that he was going to get with that pay raise, and Washington offered him 7.7. I mean, anybody in their right mind would have made that move. He was asked about possibly making a change, and he just refused to answer and go there. But I think if he was going to make a move, that Florida would be the most likely move. But I'm going to be real honest. In order for them to get to Jedd Fisch on their list, they're going to have to strike out on a lot of guys. He's probably down the list a ways.
Yeah, especially with Lane being mentioned in that job and a couple other guys. Damon Williams, it is his first full year as a starter. He's on a team that potentially has a first round wide receiver, second round running back in Jonah Coleman, but he's the engine of this thing, right? I mean, what makes him so dangerous with this offense, and what's given him fits in the 2 losses to pretty good teams?
Well, when you come down on the field on Saturday, come down to the Washington guys. I want you to take a look at a couple of guys, and Damon Williams is definitely the one that you're going to want to take a look at. And the first thing that's going to strike you is he's not big. No. They list him at 5'10". Show me a guy who says he's 5'10", and how tall are they?
My height, 5'9".
If he's about 185 pounds, the thing of it is he runs a 4.3. He's fast. And on top of that, he has a big arm. I don't know where Washington would be without Damon Williams. He will absolutely make some plays that you will be on him and he will disappear. Michigan did a really good job against him, and Ohio State did a good job against him. Does Illinois have the guys on defense to shadow him, to follow him, to hold him in? I think that's going to be key to the game, any game. With Damon, before the Michigan game against Rutgers, he had 402 yards passing and 136 yard rushing. But last week against Michigan, he was negative yards rushing because of the sacks, of course, and had a little over 200 yards passing. So Washington goes as Damon Williams goes.
What about those other 2 guys, Jonah Coleman, Denzel Boston? What makes them top 60 prospects in the NFL draft?
Well, Jonah Coleman's the other guy I want you to take a look at when you go down to the Washington size, and just look from chest down. I mean, he's 5'8" and 230 pounds, and you look at that lower body, and all I can think of every time, I just can't even imagine trying to tackle that guy and getting low and getting hit by one of his knees in the head. He is just all lower body, and he's really a threat out of the backfield as well. On top of that, he's a Campbell Trophy finalist, which is the Heisman equivalent for academic scholarships. He's carrying a 3.9 GPA for a kid coming, from a rough background out of Stockton, California like that. Jonah's not only a special football player, but he's a special person as well. Denzel Boston, a guy that Illinois fans, if they're Chicago Bear fans, may be familiar with. Denzel Boston was the understudy and learned from one of the best ever to play here, and Rome Odunze. And I always give Denzel a hard time. He's Rome hair light. He's trying to get Rome Odunze hair, So
I don't know if anybody can match Rome hair, which we love him here in Chicago. Pretty damn good player.
Oh yeah, Rome and Kyler Gordon too. Former one of the most athletic kids I've ever seen. But Denzel is a big physical receiver, and they throw the ball up to him, and more often than not, he's going to come down with it. Much like Rome, you throw a 50-50 ball, it's not a 50-50 ball to Rome, it's 80-20, and you can be said the same out of Denzel Boston. 6'3", 210. I mean, he's a big guy, and he runs extremely good routes, great big mitts for hands. So quality wide receiver. So that three tandem is tough to stop. Last week Michigan did it, but Michigan defense may be a little bit underrated. They did a good job against Washington.
Seems like they've had a couple freshmen step up in that wide receiver core as well.
They had to, yeah. Roebuck, number 81. He wasn't recruited by anybody, but he'd been going to Jedd Fisch passing camps down at Arizona for years, and they knew him really well. And I don't know if you remember a guy from the Seahawks, Doug Baldwin.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember Doug or not. Just nobody really knew about him. Nobody really cared, but he just always made the plays. And Roebuck is kind of like that guy. And Raiden Vines-Bright has slowed down a little bit, but that tells you what Washington's wide receiver room is, where, two of their top three receivers are freshmen. So that makes things a little tough. And when you talk about receivers and Damon Williams, I think what's really going to be interesting to follow this week is Washington like to use their tight ends a lot. And they lost 2 tight ends last week. One was in the hospital and didn't travel back with the team, and the other guy's out for the year. So they've got Decker DeGraff, who's a second-year player, who's more of a receiving tight end. And then after that, they've got a freshman who's never seen the field. And after that, you got offensive linemen moving over to play tight end.
I was going to ask you, this feels like it's a banged up tight end and offensive line right now. Can you fill us in there, and what's the impact of that?
For tight end, I think that's going to definitely change the impact of the game. The one tight end, Cade Eldridge, they used him kind of like an H-back and a fullback at times, especially in short yardage situations. So he's out. Quentin Moore, you just take a look at Quentin Moore and you go, yeah, that guy looks like an NFL guy. And Jedd Fisch said he's the best blocking tight end he's ever coached, and they lose that guy. And then the offensive line, the left side of the offensive line, they lost their big transfer in Carver Willis from Kansas, and they paid him a lot of money to come in to play left tackle. And then John Mills, big human, 6'6", 330 pounds, and he's only 17. He's only 17. Pocky Finau has filled in okay for John Mills. Those two were fighting it out, and the battle was close on that. But in addition to that left tackle spot with Carver Willis going down, Max McCree, the junior college transfer, moved in there, and then he went down, and it looks like he's going to be out for a significant amount of time. So second-year player Sawani Fa'asolo finished the game, and he was okay. Jedd Fisch is telling us that, he's hoping to get Carver Willis back, but the size of the brace that I saw him with 2 weeks ago, I'd be surprised. John Mills, we'll see. So, and this, when guys come back from an injury like that, it's not like they come back at the point they were before they went down.
All right, so Ryan Walters, know him well. I think the world of him as a play caller based on what he did at Illinois. Broyles Award semifinalist in 2022. Kirby Joseph isn't Kirby Joseph without him. Sidney Brown isn't Sidney Brown. And, of course, Devin Witherspoon was in his defense as well. So he did a great job with the talent he inherited from Lovie Smith. Obviously didn't go well at Purdue. He's not well liked here at Illinois anymore because of the recruiting battles he got into with Brett Bielema and the way he kind of handled himself in that. But I thought it was a good hire by Jedd Fisch. What's been the impact so far of Ryan Walters running their defense?
Okay. I think that, I use the word talent in a while. He needs more on that side of the ball. When you take a look at the corners that he's working with, it's the dream of any defensive coordinator to have the cornerbacks like Washington has. You got Ephesian Prysock on one side at 6'4". You got Tacario Davis on the other side at 6'4". You got two very, very, very big corners, and Tacario Davis probably being the better of the two, the better NFL prospect, but I think they're both NFL guys. It's just hard to find guys like that. That's probably the strongest part of the defense. Alex McLaughlin is a transfer in from Northern Arizona, and he's been steady at safety. They're playing, we call him Batman. Ryan Dillard Allen out at safety, and he's a freshman that's starting, a first-year player. Linebackers at Washington, they lost their best guy, Buddha Tariq Al-Agdukta, but he's out for the year. And the interesting thing is Jedd brought with him one of his guys from Arizona, and it's Jacob Manu. Now, Jacob, you look at him as a linebacker and you just shake your head and go, no way. He's about 5'10", maybe 220 pounds. Not a very big guy, but he's a problem. He's a problem. But one of the problems is he did not redshirt, so he's in his fourth year. He's already played in 2 games. Do you play him this game, or do you save him for a red shirt, or hopefully the 5-for-5 rule is enacted and he gets it? So there's been a lot of talk whether they're going to play Jacob Manu or not. So keep an eye on that on the defensive side of the ball, whether Washington's going to play him. And you'll notice him, he's wearing a huge knee brace, but even with that big knee brace, he's still effective. And I think the weakest link on the Washington side, they just don't have anybody that can really get to the quarterback. Zach Durfee being the best guy, but again, he's another guy who's banged up. Take a look at his arm. He looks like he's wearing a bionic arm. He had an elbow issue. So, but it's not like he's put up big numbers. So the pass rush at Washington has been an issue. So Ryan Walters, I think he's done an adequate job with the talent he has. They definitely need talent upgrades and more experience on defensive side of the ball, but I wouldn't say he's jumping off the page like he did at Illinois.
Yeah. So what do you think of this matchup against Illinois that has proven to be a good team, not a great team yet, big win over USC, nice road win at Duke, but obviously got handled by Indiana, and Ohio State, as they did against Washington, kind of controlled that game from the start. What do you think of this matchup for Washington, and what are the keys for the Huskies?
I think it's a pretty evenly matched game. I think it's a pick'em game, to be honest with you. It wouldn't be a pick'em game if Washington was at Illinois. I don't know if you've ever been to Husky Stadium, but it's different. I mean, it's definitely different. You've been to, a lot of Big Ten stadiums, Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State, where they pack the people in there. And Washington will have 70,000 people there. Not as many as those big stadiums, but the difference is the covers on Washington. Have you been to the stadium at all, Jeremy?
I haven't. I have not. I can't wait.
Well, if you take a look, we call them the jaws, the overhangs, the cover on both sides of the field. Washington has more seats in between the goal lines than any stadium I've ever been to. Not a lot of end zone seats. Everything is between the sidelines. And then you have the roof, right, coming down. So you have these 2 roofs. This isn't what they do. They're tilted down. And that noise it comes down on you. It comes down on you. It's different. It's a different type of loud than you'll experience in most other stadiums. So, the crowd can definitely be a factor, with your quarterback. I'm sure he's dealt with that noise before, but it can kind of be an intimidating place to play. So I haven't made my prediction yet. I did. I might, I did this. I got to confess, I might offload my prediction to Grok, because I put it through Grok today, and Grok had a prediction. I might use Grok instead of making my own.
What did it say?
Had Washington, I think it was 28-21. But it gave a pretty good breakdown. This AI stuff is wild.
It is. I don't want to write my stuff in it, but no, it's very interesting. I struggle with this game too. I have no idea. I have no idea. In the preseason, I looked at the schedule. I thought this offense for Washington would be good. Thought the environment would be difficult. And Ryan Walters is just a factor hanging over this game, because not only does he know Barry Lunny's offense well, and Barry got the best of him last year, but he knows Aaron Henry's defense better than anybody, right? Because they basically made it together, and they've made some changes to it as they've had to, as teams have adjusted to them. But that factor to me, I just felt like this was a tough game, even though Illinois is coming off an off week. Washington is not. So there are some advantages for Illinois. They're the older team, but I just thought this was a tough matchup going into the season. So I thought this was a loss. I think these teams are exactly what I thought they would be, Kim, coming into the season, and that's why it's such a fun matchup.
Turnovers going to be key. Quarterback play is going to be key. It was really wild. Last week against Michigan, Washington only had 8 possessions. That's it. 8. And in the old Pac-12, and Washington had 55 plays. I mean, that would be a season low in the old Pac-12. But, yeah, Big Ten is different. So I think it's going to come down to turnovers, mistakes, and quarterback play. So who's a better quarterback, Jeremy? Who do you like?
I mean, Demond, you have to stop his feet, right? Like that's the biggest thing. I like Luke's experience. It feels like he's got, even though Denzel Boston's the best receiver in this game, feels like Luke has a little bit more proven options for him. But I like Luke, but Demond, if he can run, man, he's a game changer. The one thing I do think Illinois does not have going in its favor is the Mariners are not in the World Series. Sorry to bring that up, Kim, but that would have taken at least maybe some fans away, because I think game 2 would have been in Seattle. So that's the only bad thing for Illinois.
You have no idea how on fire this town was. I mean, it's 50 years long-suffering Mariner fans. So town was on fire. During the Rutgers game, I had the radio in my ear and watching the football game on the sidelines, taking photos, and came out after doing interviews and not knowing what was going on. And I walked out on the field, and they had the big screens going with the Mariners game. There's still fans in the stands watching that when Polanco hit the game winner in that 15-inning game. It was wild. Yeah. It was wild, but it's just. For the Illinois fans, it'll be interesting to see how many Illinois fans show up. I know last year for basketball, boy, they invaded Edmondson Pavilion for the basketball game, and I would say 40% of the attendance in that, in the arena, that was Illinois. But the Big Ten seems to have a large presence. The Big Ten schools have a large presence in Seattle. I think they have a good footprint. So I'm expecting a good crowd from Illinois to travel, as well as just attend the game for people that live here.
Kim, before I let you go, we mentioned the Bears have a lot of Washington guys. You have a really good former Illini in Devin Witherspoon. What is the thought of him in Seattle?
Get on the field. He's been hurt. He's going to cost some money, but this Mike McDonald defense is special. I don't know if you got a chance to watch that Monday night game, but man, that defensive line. But they've got to get Devin Witherspoon back. He's a star. He's not very big, but man, I don't want to get hit by that guy.
No, absolutely. Kim Grinolds, dogman.com, great Washington site. Go check them out this week. Great coverage of 24/7 sports. Kim, thanks for the insight. We'll see you out in Seattle on Saturday, man.
We'll see you there. Let us know what we can do.
New sponsor alert. We're proud to add Game Day Spirit as a new sponsor to the show. Most Illini fans should be familiar with Game Day Spirit as the official fan store of the Fighting Illini, selling the best Illini gear in town or online. And that's why I'm personally excited about this partnership. We have a lot of people in town who can visit their store in Champaign at the corner of 6th and Green in Campustown, or at Neal and Kirby in Champaign, really close to Memorial Stadium and State Farm Center. But we know we have listeners all around the country, all around the world, and that's why Game Day Spirit is great, because you can go online at GameDaySpirit.com and get the best Illini gear available. And right now, Game Day Spirit is kicking off their partnership with us by offering an exclusive discount for you Illini Inquirer listeners. Get 15% off your next purchase with them online at GameDaySpirit.com when you use the code Illini15 at checkout. That's 15% off your next purchase with Game Day Spirit at GameDaySpirit.com when you use the code Illini15 at checkout. You can shop their great selection of Fighting Illini merchandise to continue to cheer on your Fighting Illini football team this season, or get some new gear to support the men's basketball team as they start their season. They have everything an Illini fan could want, from t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, and official NIL jerseys of your favorite Illini athlete. Visit them in store in Champaign, or at the corner of 6th and Green in Campustown, or Neal and Kirby in Champaign. And be sure to use the exclusive Illini Inquirer discount for your next online purchase at GameDaySpirit.com by using Illini15 at checkout at GameDaySpirit.com. GameDaySpirit.com. That's code Illini15 for 15% off at GameDaySpirit.com. Game Day Spirit, where Illini fans shop. All right, let's bring in Joey Wagner. We'll talk the Illinois side of things with our 6-pack of Illinois questions. Joey and I getting on a flight to Seattle, cross-country trip for a Big Ten matchup at Washington. Big game for the Illini, big trip for us. Joey, you excited?
Yeah, this is the first of a couple 6-packs this week, isn't it? By the time we get to Seattle?
Probably. I love the early game time, 12:30 Pacific. We can get a couple beers after the game, too.
I was like, there was a little part of me, I was like, we're going to have all day in Seattle on Friday. Let's run this thing to like a 4 o'clock, get a good hotel sleep. But I will be happy to be done with that and done with work a little earlier. It's earlier, but like it's not like usually we get back to the hotel and we'll flip through games. That's not really the case when you're out west. You get back to the hotel and it's like, oh, Golden Girls is on, which I'm thrilled to watch, but there's not going to be a lot of football going on.
That's right. But yeah, we'll actually have a couple hours to go get dinner and have a beer too as we write up all our content. But I'm excited for Husky Stadium. I hear it's great. Just had Kim Grinolds on and said the acoustics in it are really different. And obviously the view right there and the sound there is going to be a lot of fun. So looking forward to this trip. But Joey, as I talked to Kim about, these are two very similar teams with very similar stakes in this one. Some familiarity with Ryan Walters that we'll get into in our 6-pack questions here. But man, this is the biggest game remaining, not only because it's the next one, but because on paper, it's the toughest one. Doesn't mean Maryland can't beat you. Doesn't mean Northwestern can't beat you. But this is the best team you have remaining on your schedule.
Yeah, I think anyone who rationally looks at the schedule looks at this like, okay, you get through that, and then you see where the team is record-wise. Then you can really start with a little bit more – you're never totally positive, right? But with a little bit more confidence, start to project out that final 4-game stretch, which includes – Rutgers, Maryland, Wisconsin, and Northwestern. I mean, by any stretch, that's a very winnable final 4 games this season. But going to Seattle, playing Washington would be tough in Champaign. And you factor in they literally never lose at home to non-Ohio State teams. And it's a big task.
Yeah, and it's been fun to kind of have this talk of, hey, if Illinois wins out, do they get into the college football playoff? Do they beat out a 9-3 or a couple 9-3 SEC teams? Do they beat out a 5th 10-2 Big Ten team if there's one like USC or whoever it is? But it's like, it doesn't matter if you don't win this game. Like all those conversations are for naught. I get having them. They're fun, but win this one, Joey, we can start having those conversations. Just the team still got to focus on those ones, but they'd be favored in their final 4 games here. They're not favored here. I think they'd be favored by 7+ points in all their remaining 4 games. So you win this one, we can really start having those conversations.
Yeah, I like to think like if they win this, I like to think of like 11:30, 12 o'clock. Brett Bielema is like winding down for the night, and a thought comes in like, "Oh, this will be a good tweet." If the situation is like got like a draft of like, and another thing, we're 10-2, like just really, really dialing it up just to unleash all of the drafts come that time if Illinois can get there. But yeah, this is one that it feels weird to even say right now. After what we against, like we left Bloomington, like no way, this is not like it. We'll see how the record shapes up, but the eye test hurts. And then really, for the most part, they kept it respectable against Ohio State, but the eye test of the first half hour of that game of real time is like, whoa, okay, Ohio State is different, but they could put themselves to really have a conversation. You could be a 10-2 potentially Big Ten team with your losses to 1-2. Like that is a compelling argument. And I know someone in SEC land is going to say no, but that's part of this, right? And that's part of what makes it fun.
The comeback is consistently going to be you lost by 53 points to a team.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Like you lost by 53 points to a playoff team. Like Ohio State, you can explain away, right? Like you can look at the box score and say, they had some turnovers. That was the key. Otherwise, they were competitive. Indiana, you can't. They just weren't competitive. So you still have flaws where it doesn't at 10-2, it wouldn't guarantee you it, but you'd have a good case. Like you would have a good case because all of those cases at that point for teams 10 through 18 are going to be flawed.
Yeah, that's right. And you're in the Big Ten. That's going to help, and that's why Brett Bielema tweeted actually this weekend, like you need USC. You could have really used USC to beat Notre Dame, and you need some of these Dukes. You're potentially Washington if that goes Illinois' way. You need those to continue to age relatively well because we don't think Purdue is going to age all that well. Western Michigan is not something that's going to age. Wisconsin surely isn't going to age well at all. So you need some of those ones that were toss-ups that they have won or they could win to keep looking like teams that are good teams this year.
We'll hit on injuries before we get into a six-pack of questions. Sounds like this is a pretty healthy team. We'll have to see. Xavier Scott, I don't imagine he's going to be back in the regular season. Brett Bielema has not closed that off, but it's basically the vibe we've been getting is.
Listen, we've seen him on
a college football playoff if you want Xavier Scott to play.
The last 2 times I've physically seen Xavier Scott with my own eyes, he's been on a scooter.
Yes.
So, like, you typically don't go from scooter to Big Ten football game in a span of 3 weeks. So, like, let's pump the brakes on that. They didn't shut the door in its entirety, Jeremy. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm personally not considering his return unless we sit in a press conference Monday and Brett Bielema is like, hey, I'm telling you, Xavier Scott, and then you have to at least entertain it. But otherwise, just put that in the back of your mind because I don't see that.
But a week off should help Aiden Lawfrey get fully healthy. I liked what I saw out of him against Ohio State. When he's healthy, he's a good player. Caden Fagan practicing this week. We saw the pictures from practice, get that shoulder injury healed up a little bit. Khalil Valentine, Brett Bielema said would practice this week. I'm still got to see it when we get out there on Saturday to see after that gnarly looking injury, but seems like they avoided the worst case scenario there. The secondary should be a little bit healthier. Caleb Patterson's a guy I'm interested to see if he can play a little bit more with his snaps being limited. He's been banged up a lot of the year. Of course, Juice Clark emerging is going to impact his snaps as well. But Josh Kreutz is another one. I don't know what percentage he actually was. I think it's between 60 and 70%, what he probably was at Ohio State. Felt like it was some kind of sprain in his lower body, and he gutted through it and played. Clearly couldn't, anchor as well as he would. So for him to have basically 2 weeks, Joey, to get ready, that could really help the offensive line in a matchup that we'll talk about. I kind of like. So that week was well timed. They needed it, even if they didn't have anything too serious outside of Xavier Scott. There's some guys that really needed that week off.
Yeah, I mean, most players are banged up in some capacity. It just doesn't always limit them from playing in games. I feel a little bit better about the running back room based on what Brett Bielema has said the last 2 times we've spoken to him. There are times where you do still have to see it. And I think we still have to see the warm-ups and the availability report. Seeing Caden Fagan, a literal photo of him in practice makes me feel better. Khalil Valentine we'll see. But even Aiden Lawfrey, I mean, that has been a lingering, I think it was an ankle for him, a lingering thing. So even a week off for him just to get right, which is reps for Jordan Anderson, it's reps for Cedric Weiss. I mean, you're getting other guys reps in those windows, but
I would say, especially with Khalil Valentine, kind of the unknown here, it's nice that Aiden Lawfrey got another week off to heal up that ankle because he's a good player, and they need at least one of those at full health, right? Like they need one of those to complement Caden Fagan.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what I was like. Every time Aiden Lawfrey runs, it's like a constant reminder. Like, hey, I understand he's missed a chunk of games here and there. He's a good player, and I thought he had. I was actually impressed with the juice that he ran with against Ohio State because those runs, he didn't look like a guy who had missed a few. He had burst. He looked good. A week off for him is just Khalil Valentine. We still have to acknowledge it as unknown until we see it. Otherwise, just because it looked so. Whoa, that doesn't look.
I keep coming.
So until we see, I'm not saying we don't believe Brett Bielema. It's just our job to need to see it before we go too far in on that.
All right, you ready for our 6-pack of questions? Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
All right, number 1. We'll focus away from the field a little bit because there was an off week. Brett Bielema was jet setting across the country in Shad Khan's private jet. Nice to have that at your disposal. What intrigues you most about the Illini's off-week recruiting, Joey?
This has really been something they've done the last few years. JUCO. This feels like very much the JUCO window. They got a couple home games, but they liked what they saw on that eval. You can get a kid to campus. And when we say JUCO, that the most success they've had with that has been on the offensive line. And you consider that they're losing 4 or 5 starters. I like where the depth is going, right? You can go down each position on the line and say, well, Aiden Knappich at left tackle. You can go with TJ McMillan at center. Brandon Henderson's obviously back. Des Schuster's a name we've talked about forever. Eddie Turk. You want to keep building that. Like that is just so paramount to keep going in and building that. And, you think back to some of the success stories they've had in the junior college ranks on the offensive line. Isaiah Adams. If I'm not mistaken, he was an off-week guy that they went and they saw. Zy Chrysler.
Didn't he?
It wasn't.
Isaiah Adams. The story was he was in a drill with his coach and he pancaked his coach. And
Yes,
people love that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Zy Chrysler, he was a productive starter in the Big Ten. It wasn't Isaiah Adams level, but he was a good player. Des Schuster's a guy we've talked about a lot, who I think we'll probably talk about a lot more in the spring and the summer. So this has been a JUCO window. And again, you have some home games where if they pass the eye test in terms of height, length, all of that weight, then you can get them in on campus, give them that experience. And typically this is kind of the 2 or 3 month window where the JUCO thing really gets moving at a decent speed.
Yeah, they went to Iowa, saw a couple guys. One guy to keep an eye on, Alan Pond. He's a guard, 6'4", 300 at Iowa Central. They went to Hutchinson Community College, which, by the way, Caleb Pyfrom is there. They used to be an Illini commit, went to Missouri.
Friend alert.
So that's a name that they say at least have connections to. TJ Taylor is an offensive tackle, the top-ranked JUCO offensive tackle Illinois has offered. They're trying to get him in for an official visit, likely for either the Rutgers or Maryland game. So he is one to watch. Yeah, it's all about that offensive line. And you mentioned, all the guys they're losing with 5 for 5, likely not happening here. As Brett Bielema said on Monday, doesn't seem like there's a lot of momentum. They tabled that at the NCAA. That means Melvin Priestley wouldn't be coming back. So that's another guy you lose. Desmond Schuster, another JUCO kid, will be big next year, but they need multiple offensive linemen to come in and play right away. They'll, of course, be active in the portal, but yeah, JUCO offensive line is going to be big. I'll go the flip candidate route. Bielema said he went east. Well, Marlon Bright, Penn State commit, really need another offensive lineman. They could really use another really high ceiling one. Marlon would need a couple years to develop his strength, but 6'6", really good athlete, future left tackle prospect. And Art Sikowski has been leading that one, as he did with Kai Pritchard, 4-star offensive lineman out of New Jersey, Marlon Bright out of New Jersey. Be a heck of an offensive line cycle for Art Sikowski, the co-quarterbacks coach there. Also, Brett Bielema said he was down in Florida. There's a couple kids that were committed or are committed to UCLA at Vero Beach, which Illinois and Brett Bielema have a good relationship with. Micah Smith, a 4-star offensive lineman who was on an official visit. Marlon Bright was on an official visit in the spring as well. Xavier Stinson, a wide receiver at Vero Beach. They're looking to add another wide receiver. And then a couple other kids, Ohio defensive lineman Lance Dawson, defensive back Braden Presley. He's an Oklahoma State commit. So, yeah, Joe, they have done really well flipping guys. Grant Bierman, Colin Dixon. I know Malik Elsie didn't work out, but that was a big flip for them. I know AJ Dennis didn't work out, but that was a big flip for them. So the great thing Illinois has going for them, no matter if Barry Lunny gets a job elsewhere or somebody else, an assistant gets a job elsewhere, there's so much stability with Brett Bielema. And for kids that just saw their coach they were committed to get fired, that's going to be really appealing, especially when there's a relationship already there, like with Marlon Bright, like with Micah Smith. So they could add some really good prospects here. And I include Lance Dawson, Cincinnati commit, defensive lineman, really high ceiling kid. They could add some really impactful long-term players here.
What game did Brett Bielema watch Friday night?
The Wisconsin game? Or
the high school football game?
Oh,
Friday night?
Yeah. He was in to see Soren Pfeiffer and Bo Sutter, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what
look,
focused on.
Listen, I think flipping Max Sutter from Alabama, the 4-star tight end from Dunlap, is probably unlikely. Brett Bielema showing up to Dunlap for that game. Obviously, Soren Pfeiffer is the guy that we believe they like a good amount, the Morton offensive lineman in the class of 2027. Bo Sutter, obviously, Mac's brother. Yeah, you're also there to do a little, hey, how we doing, sir, to Max Sutter.
Hey,
I don't think that's happening, but we do have to point out that he went to that game. And while there are 2 other prospects they have offers to, certainly Max Sutter was a draw to go to that game, if I had to guess.
What I love about that is, everybody we talk to, unlikely Mac would flip, especially with Alabama playing really well, and that's a school he wants to go to. I love that Brett Bielema was going to the end. Until signing day, I think he's going to call him up on signing day before he sends in his papers back. You sure? All right. Just to make sure you're there. And I thought it was interesting that the night Brett Bielema went there, Alabama made sure to have an assistant coach there too.
For not an open week, right? Alabama didn't have an open week. I don't think that was an accident that both of them were there. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, is it unlikely? Yeah, I think it's unlikely. But Brett Bielema is going to keep getting those reps up, if I had to guess, until the day that paperwork gets to Tuscaloosa for Max Sutter.
The other interesting part here is Lane Kiffin is a candidate for Florida, at least a target for Florida. So I know people are asking, we're talking about Max Sutter. People are probably wondering, well, what about JC Anderson? There could be something there. Obviously, there's a relationship there, but Mac, I think, would be the top target there. So it'll be interesting to watch as the season goes along. All right, number 2, Joey. What's the bigger factor in this game? Brett Bielema's post-bye week success. He's 6-1 after the bye week. I would take Chattanooga out of that. He's 5-1 against Big Ten teams out of an off week. Or is it Ryan Walters coaching for Washington, a third straight year of Illinois, going up against their former defense coordinator? What has a bigger factor on this game?
Yeah, I can't wait because I know we're going to be different on this. I would also contend that if you're taking Chattanooga out, you could reasonably take Iowa in 2021 out. Brett Bielema had COVID. Yeah, so he wasn't on the sideline. So if you want to do that, then you're looking at 5-0 at Illinois after bye week. So I'm going to lean on that. I think that's it. Like, there's enough of a body of work there to say, oh, like that's something that they do very well. Like, yeah, they're jet setting across the U.S. and they're recruiting, but they've had success coming out of bye weeks, and they obviously, have a big task in Washington coming up. The reason, I mean, beyond just the body of work, Ryan Walters is a really good coach. He's a really smart defensive mind. I understand there are Illinois fans that are going to hear us say really nice things about Ryan Walters because we believe them. Who are going to be like, yo, shut up. Yeah, first of all, how dare you? Like, I understand that is going to be the response. I get it. He's a really good football mind. He got to Washington in January as a defensive coordinator. He's not playing the Ryan Walters system that we know, that we have seen him have a lot of success with. That's not to say this defense is unsuccessful, but this isn't the press coverage, single high kind of outfit that we've seen Ryan Walters do very well because he didn't really have time to get there and get the guys in and do what he needed to do. So while I do think, obviously, he knows Aaron Henry and he knows the way that the Illinois defense, he probably has popped into Jedd Fisch's office and said, yo, listen, by the way, I did call some plays last year against this defense and had success. I do think you do have to take a little bit away. Like, this just isn't a personnel that was built for Ryan Walters' full experience as a defensive coordinator. Brett Bielema has done this thing a time or two after bye week. So I think that probably has a bigger factor.
I'm going to surprise you. I agree with you. I think Brett Bielema's post-bye week success is a bigger deal. I'm trying to overcome the scars of what I've seen Illinois go through the last 2 years. Ryan Walters' first year at Purdue, they run away in the second half and take advantage of Illinois' miscues. And it just felt like, he had some answers for Barry's offense. Last year, Barry out schemed Ryan. Now, Ryan, I don't think was calling the defense that day because he was calling the offense against Aaron Henry. And it's one of the most impressive coaching jobs I've ever seen on a terrible team in a loss. Like, Ryan calling the offense as the head coach when he hadn't done that all year. So kudos to him. That's my bigger concern, is his knowledge of Aaron Henry and his defense. Obviously he's scheming more for Barry this week, but that's a good thing to have for Jedd Fisch. So I do think that's a little bit of a factor. The personnel, like Ryan knows going up against Illinois, but that's changed a lot the last 3 years. But I do love that Illinois has had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. Most important game left on your schedule. I think being 2 weeks for that Maryland game is going to be really, really important and advantageous for Illinois as well. But Brett's been really good at this. Now, it's not been a murderer's row that he's beaten, but he did have an off week leading into the Penn State game in 2021 when nobody thought they would win. Just a terrible coaching job by James Franklin, by the way. Beat Nebraska in 2022, Minnesota in 2023, they late comeback, and then Purdue last year and Michigan State last year. Not great teams, right? And it wasn't the best performance against Purdue, but Brett's good at this. Brett's a really good coach. So even if I'm nervous about the Ryan Walters thing, probably more than I should be, I would give the edge to Brett Bielema having an extra week to prepare. And, Washington coming off a week where it had to go in the Eastern time zone, fly all the way back. Illinois had some time to rest and relax, and Illinois is healthy and Washington's not. So I do think that's an advantage, and probably more of an advantage than Ryan Walters being in the other meeting rooms.
James Franklin is reaching Scott Frost territory
No, that was terrible. Like, how do you not like figure out the barge? No one else has had issues with the barge ever since that. They had the issues with the barge.
Illinois is the one who's had the bigger issues with the barge since that moment.
They had issues for the barge for like 5 hours that day. Like at some point, you don't know how to fix it. It was, that was a really bad game for James.
Yeah, I do want to point out more seriously that, Illinois, we just talked about their ability to get healthy this off week. Washington had some injuries at Michigan, and you are having a quick turnaround back. And is that something? Maybe. Is it nothing? Maybe, right? Like in terms of the turnaround, the injury certainly would be something, especially on the offensive line. So, I think that does matter. Like that was one of those things that we looked at earlier. Like, okay, Washington's going to come off a very physical game against Michigan, have to fly back across the country, and Illinois kind of got its feet up on that Saturday, resting and watching college football and out recruiting. So that probably has a bigger deal from an injury standpoint than anything.
All right, number 3, one change you'd make on offense for Illinois moving forward, Joey.
Can we maybe you can articulate it better? They need to run the ball better. I don't know what the change is there. It's just a fact. Like you probably need to run the ball.
I'll give you mine because mine was that I had one personnel thing that I think you wrote about, so I'll let you handle that. I think it's the more duo blocking, right? What we saw against USC where it's simply center, guard, tackle, double team, get onto the linebacker. Now, some teams can scheme around that, the defenses, but less pulling. I just don't think they've been great in that gap scheme with the pulling and pinning and pulling, and I just don't think it's been great because your center struggles to get some push. That can disrupt things, and the guards, can't pull as well as they do. I'd keep it simple, attack mode, get downhill, get to the linebackers, because I don't need it perfectly executed for Khalil Valentine or Aiden Lawfrey or Caden Fagan. I just need to give those guys a chance to get downhill. And I think Caden Fagan is really good when he gets downhill because he's going to get 4 or 5 yards a pop. And what that does for Luke Altmaier in the passing attack is awesome. And then just if you have an open lane for Aiden Lawfrey or Khalil Valentine, they can obviously do a lot of things for it. So that's my biggest thing. Again, Ryan Walters knows this. Other teams know it, but I keep it simple for that front. Let them be aggressive. I think they have an advantage. The Illinois offensive line against Washington's defensive front. They have some good players. Tai Uiagalelei. I messed that up, but he's a really good interior defensive lineman. They have a couple good edge players, but I do think Illinois can get after them a little bit. They've given up some rushing yards. So I think just more of that duo blocking, simple double teams onto the linebackers. That's what this group has been good at. They crushed USC doing that. Another former Pac-12 team that's still adjusting to the Big Ten. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I actually talked to Bart Miller about just what has changed because here's like the offensive line has played better in the final or the last 3 games, 3 or 4 games. Has it been perfect? No. There have been things to critique, yes. But they have played better. And he said, early on, we were trying to scheme around all these different movements. And he said, we just got back to doing what we do and being who we are, which sounds so simple, but you have to consider, like, these guys were recruited to play a certain way. You go physically recruit a certain type of body to do certain things. That's how you train them all off season and all season. So it does make sense.
It's kind of why I've said Illinois and Brett Bielema need to figure out what they want to be up front. Like, do you want to be this zone blocking team? Do you want to, get out in space and do all those things? Or do you just want to be what we kind of associate with Brett Bielema, fair or not, from his past at Wisconsin? Do you want to be the most physical team on the field? Like, I think they got to figure that out. And of course, some personnel things, you got to get bigger, stronger at center. But I think they got to figure out what they want to be.
Yes, I mean, hey, it's not just his past at Wisconsin, though. Some of the better offensive lines at Illinois have been too. So, I mean, there's definitely a body of work there. The answer to me is you've got to feature Cole Rusk more. And, like, I don't want to get too caught up in the game against Ohio State, where by the time he really started producing, the game was pretty much over at that point. But this is what you saw against Ohio State. They still had their starters in, right? Like, they were still playing starters, and he had 5 catches for 68 yards. That's what you think of with Cole Rusk. That's why you go and recruit Cole Rusk to be that guy who can be a safety blanket for basically his best friend in the world at quarterback and Luke Altmaier, and a guy who can get downfield. I
should have looked this up. Who was the last Illinois tight end to have more than 60 receiving yards in a game? Was it Barker?
It'd have to be Daniel Barker, right?
Barker or Dorsey, right? Like,
yeah, because I don't believe Ryman. For Ryman to do it, it would have had to have been a good chunk.
Yeah, I don't think Tip ever had a game like that.
can
I
tell
mean,
you
his
that right
Minnesota
now.
game, like in 21, he had 2 touchdowns, I think, out of nowhere. I'll look that up.
Yeah.
I don't think
Go ahead.
like that.
So the catch-22 you've been in here with Cole Rusk, one, he's been coming off of an injury. And I understand that, like, when we hear cleared, when fans hear cleared, it's like, all right, he's good to go. Like, there is a process. It does take time, especially when you're talking about a knee injury to the level that Cole Rusk had. And, you know, that you kind of do have to work that into some of your expectations. But the other thought is Tanner Arkin's your tight end one. And he's not that downfield guy, but he opens up a lot in the run game. So 11 personnel, Tanner Arkin is probably going to get that draw because of what he can do at the line of scrimmage. So is Cole Rusk giving you enough in 12 personnel that you're comfortable taking one of Colin Dixon, Hank Beatty, or Hudson Clement off the field? That's a big ask. Those three are very productive. Obviously, we've seen a lot of Beatty and Dixon. Clement is coming on in a big way that I think. So that's a tough spot. But when they have gone 12, they've gone to Christian Abney, they've gone to Davin Stoffel. Those guys just haven't been as consistent at the line of scrimmage as you need them to be in 12. And if Russ can just hold his own enough at the line, in the sense of you're not telegraphing everything. The last thing you won is 2021 Illinois when Carlos Sandy and is that Pat Bryant in 21, they come on the field and it's like, oh, this is a run. These guys are out here to block. You can't tip a defense off when they see Cole Russ to know it's a pass. Like that's not going to be advantageous for your offense. So can you hold up enough at the line? I think yes, and then what he can give you downfield. And here's maybe the biggest part of all, Jeremy. QB1 trusts him and is very confident in getting him the ball. And that has to matter for something, right? That has to give us some sense of confidence there.
Here's my thing. Like in 12 personnel, I want Arkin and Rusk moving forward because I don't think Rusk is a better blocker than Christian Abney or Davin Stoffel. I don't think the gap is wide enough to keep Rusk off the field. I think Rusk at least will battle. I think he'll at least give you an effort. And just the ability to be able to throw out a 12 personnel, I think he gives you more options. I just think there's more upside there. And let's be honest, if Tip Ryman's not, after this year he's gone. So like Tanner Arkin, sorry. Just pulling
I did it today too.
Pulling the joy.
Hey, don't put me in that.
If Tanner, like Cole Russ got to be on the field a lot next year. And I do like that he's starting to be on some more rundowns. So he's a little bit less predictable. It's time. It's Cole Russ time. Like I thought there was going to be what it has been. Like I didn't think he was going to hit the ground running. All of a sudden he's the tight end who is promised, right? With Cole Russ, a 4-star transfer. But it's there. And I agree with you. His quarterback trusts him. And if his quarterback trusts Hank Beatty, Colin Dixon, Hudson Clement, and Cole Rusk, that's a lot of weapons where he can just pick the best option. And Cole Rusk makes contested catches. He's got 10 catches on 12 targets. We've seen him catch it away from his body with people draped all over him. Just haven't had that at tight end. And I did look it up. The last tight end to have 60-plus yards in a game for Illinois was Daniel Barker. He had 74 yards against UTSA in 2021 in that loss. He also had the last Big Ten game was 74 yards for Barker against Purdue in 2020. You know what Tip Ryman's career high was for a single game?
41.
Good guess. 42. You know how many catches he had that day?
Probably 5.
1. 1 for 42. I don't remember that play. I don't
Who
remember
was that against?
I don't. I'd have to go back and look it up. But
I don't. I feel bad to say this about the third-round NFL draft pick. I do not remember a 42-yard reception in Tip Ryman's pass at Illinois.
Florida Atlantic, that 23-17 win against Florida Atlantic. He had 1 for 42. Was that LaJohntay Webster was awesome in that game?
That's right. Yeah. Was that also a Chase Brown game?
Every game. No, because that was 2023. Chase was that day.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you on all things Cole Russ. Here, we do have to acknowledge though.
Am I kind of I'm kind of game? Did Griffin Moore have a game that was better than that? It's one guy I haven't looked up.
Man, he may have. There's 1 or 2 games where it's like, whoa.
Kansas, 4 catches, 56 yards. Didn't go over 60, but he got 56. So there you go.
That's right. We do have to acknowledge this. I'm probably too far in the weeds. If you're going to have Cole Rusk out there more, which you and I are very much in favor of, you do have to kind of let your quarterback, because Luke Altmaier is zoned in quite a lot on Cole Rusk when he's out there. And I'm not saying he's only going to throw to Cole Rusk, but you do have to kind of acknowledge, like, hey, there are, don't focus so much in. I'm not saying it's for favoritism. There's just a lot of trust there, right? And I don't think it's going to be a huge problem, but I do go back to, it was in the south end zone. I don't even remember. It was an early game this season, Western Michigan, maybe Western Illinois. It's like, oh, yeah, he is absolutely looking for Cole Rusk. And that's fine at times, but you do, like, I think over the time since that game, though, Hank Beatty's really solidified a lot of trust. Colin Dixon, Hudson Clement have solidified a lot of trust. But, yeah, Rusk looks like what Illinois has been missing. And here, no one's going to say, like, another weapon for Luke? Really? You think that's the best decision? It is the best decision. It is absolutely the best decision.
Because you need to lean into your passing game, right? Like this is your strength. And if he's more comfortable with him out there and he helps you, especially in those 12 personnel packages, I would definitely go with it. The other thing is, Joe will probably bring this up in a little bit. Washington does not guard the tight end very well, just like Illinois did.
Let's hold those. I did research. I did some actual research.
I figured you would. And plus, there's not a lot of film on Cole Rusk, so it could surprise some people. All right, number 4, Joey. What's one change you'd make on defense moving forward?
Okay, I do have to put a little caveat on this because I do think it's this week notwithstanding, right? They need to get more pressure on the quarterback. This week, I expect the Lenore Sellers game plan. If you try to get upfield on DeMond Williams, he's gone. He's out of there. Like he's going to make a big chunk run. You can't. He wants you to come at him. He wants to find an avenue.
Put it out there to the fans. Illinois is probably not going to have a lot of sacks in this game unless DeMond Williams runs into them, right? Like they are not.
Which he has done.
Yes. Which he has done a lot actually. But if you're catching 5 sacks in this game or third down, Illinois to really get after it, that's not the game plan that I think is smart in this one.
Yeah, mentally prepare yourself for 3-man rushes, for 4-man rushes. I don't think they have a lot of interest in getting upfield on him because he would love that. So that we do have to acknowledge that. But I do think beyond this week, I want to see more pressure on the quarterback. You're also maybe getting to a part of the schedule where you're not seeing what's really been a gauntlet of awesome quarterbacks. Like they have played really stinking good quarterbacks to this point. And I understand where that could get in Aaron Henry's head as a play call a little bit with the secondary that you have, and you do want to be a little bit more conservative. There have been too many third downs, third and mediums, third and longs, where it's like, just go get him. Go make him make a play back there. And I think after Saturday, I want to see more of that. I want to see more of JoJo Hayden, Kaneno Luga, that turbo package. What happened to that? That was around this time last year that you saw that turbo third down package start to really come to light. And I think that could be something they tap back into, just not this week.
Yeah, and I wonder if they run more of the 3-3-5 package, get some linebackers on the field at some point and do that. Third down is the key here, right? I mean, the numbers are atrocious, and they really have been bad since Aaron Henry has been defensive coordinator. And he's talked a lot about changing the picture for the quarterbacks when you can't bring all that pressure all the time because your secondary is struggling. And I do think he knows that, his secondary doesn't have a lot of confidence, especially a couple guys that are still green on this secondary. So he's been doing a lot of disguising of bringing everybody up on the line of scrimmage and then dropping some and some blitz, right? I don't know if you need to do that as much. I feel like you're getting out of position a little bit with your linebackers, and then quarterbacks can make these quick decisions while your linebackers and defensive backs and safeties are still getting back there. And Julian's saying, and these really good quarterbacks can just pick you apart. I just like them just to sink right away and sit in that zone, come up, make a play if you have to. But I do think you still need to bring some creative blitzes. And the guys I kind of like blitzing, Matthew Bailey, I like using as a blitzer a little bit. I wouldn't mind Tanner Heckel using that speed, using that explosiveness. So maybe some defensive backs coming off that edge, I think could help, especially if it gets Gabe Akis into some one-on-one battles, because he's not getting enough of those. He's getting a lot of chip help. He's getting a lot of double teams right now. They're kind of negating him. So I just don't know if you need to disguise that much with all those guys in the line of scrimmage, because it is taking your guys out of position a little bit, getting their eyes away from the quarterback. I think that can change a little bit and just simplify it a little bit.
Yeah, there's no universe that I want a quarterback to have a quick outlet to his receiver, because that means Gabe Akis isn't getting where Gabe Akis needs to go. And that is, you talk about leaning into the passing game on offense with Luke. Whatever you can do to lean into Gabe Akis going at a quarterback and making life a little easier for him to get at a quarterback, you have to do. He's your best player on defense. You absolutely have to find a way to get him advantageous matchups. I also think Miles Scott, we've seen him come in as a blitzer from time to time. I do like that idea. You've mentioned it before, I think, with delayed blitzes from Dylan Rosiak. We know Kaneno Deluga, JoJo Hayden can get at the quarterback.
We even saw Sabor. Sabor came on a blitz against Ohio State. I liked it. Disrupted Sane a little bit.
All of that ties into third down, right? Just to try to get pressure on them. We've been talking about the disguising for a couple of weeks now. And I think it was that at Purdue, maybe, that Brett mentioned something along those lines. I get what it can do, and it can be kind of a de facto rush because the quarterback would sit back there and try to identify what he's seeing. But if you're not getting to where they need to go and they've got a quick release valve, the Gabe Akis isn't getting where Gabe Akis needs to go, and that's a problem.
You know who I like it against? I like it against Malik Washington. I like it against whoever Wisconsin's playing at quarterback. And I might like it against Preston Stone. The quarterbacks you've been going against are not fooled by it.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. And this week is probably going to be much of the same of that. But I think if you dial up a little bit more pressure, you can get that third down number. Third down, let's just be honest, in Sam Henry's third year as a defensive coordinator, third down defense has not been a strong suit for Illinois.
Yeah. Number 5, biggest concern for the Illini against Washington, Joey.
Do we just have the same as DeMond Williams, right? Yes. I mean, it's DeMond Williams. He is 4th in the nation in scramble yards this season with 270.
Yeah, again, my specific answer was DeMond Williams' legs. He's a really good passer. His legs are what concerned me.
Yeah, and the games that they win, he's done both. He's kind of like you think a little bit like he's smaller, but he moves well like Jalen Daniels at Kansas did. But he also can sling that thing too. He's not just a running quarterback. So there's a little Mensa in his ability to throw that around, and that is a scary combination. He is the most dynamic moving quarterback that Illinois has seen this season. He's small. He can really get out of there. His ability to run really scares me. And
Can I give you a stat on that?
Please. Yes.
When Williams rushes for 50+ yards, and that includes sacks, so including sacks, Washington is 5-0, averages 46 points a game. In the 2 games against Ohio State and Michigan, obviously very good teams and very good defenses, they kept him, including sacks, they kept him really in single-digit yards, and Huskies were held to single-digit points. Ohio State held them to 7 carries for 18 yards. That's taking out sacks. So 7 carries, 18 yards. Michigan held them to 3 rushes. They made him give up the ball to Jonah Coleman in those options. I think that's key. 3 rushes for 5 yards, and that is taking out the sacks that he took. So Illinois, obviously not the same defense as Ohio State, not nearly as good as Michigan. But if you can contain his legs like you did with Daniels, who had 35 yards last year against Illinois, Lenora Sellers had 34 yards against Illinois, Aiden Childs had 40 rushing yards against Illinois. You do that with Williams, who is basically the Big Ten version of Kyler Murray with the way he looks, the way he moves, how great of an athlete he is. If you do that, you have a real good chance to win.
Yeah, co-sign everything that you just said there. It's just you got to be disciplined enough up front to understand that he wants to find those running lanes. He wants to get moving, take off and run. I've said it. I think that you're going to see a Lenore Sellers-like game plan against him.
You're going to get frustrated when you're seeing him sitting in the pocket, right? You're going to be frustrated when he's sitting there in the pocket, but you'll be more frustrated and have a better chance to lose if you let him get upfield. Like if you pass rush after him, get upfield, all of a sudden he's got all these running lanes, and he's a 4-3, 4-4 guy that once he gets in that open field, it's going to be tough for those linebackers and defensive backs to get down.
Yeah, and listen, for the things that Aaron Henry hasn't done all that well as a defensive coordinator, he's come up with game plans for these guys who can run. Yeah. Like that has been a strength of his. And, obviously that includes Terrence Jamison, Archie McDaniels, 2 position coaches up front, Trent Harris. You got to keep him in the pocket. So if you're already mad yelling, just prepare yourself mentally to yell at your TV. Like, why is no one rushing him? They don't want to. Yeah. Him in the pocket for 4 or 5 seconds is a win for Illinois.
And he can still beat you there. He's still a good thrower. That's what makes him so difficult. Like, I think he's a better passer than Jalen Daniels. probably a little bit more accurate than Lenora Sellers. Lenora has an absolute cannon, though, but he will run into some sacks. He's been sacked 17 times this year. That's tied for fourth most in the Big Ten. Leads the Big Ten with 20 quarterback own pressures allowed. So he's basically responsible for 20 quarterback pressures. Luke Altmaier is responsible for 8 sacks, just to put that in context. So yeah, it's really interesting. It's a really tough.
8 pressures?
No, I got to get the number for how many. I think it was 9 sacks for Williams. He's tied. They're both tied. Okay. Both tied with 8 sacks. Sorry. I'm reading this as we go. Both have are responsible for 8 sacks that the team has allowed. So both these guys bear responsibility for the sacks they've taken.
Yeah. That's the story, right? And I actually have a bold prediction that's going to tie in on that. I didn't even realize how much I hedged until you started reading off a bunch of numbers.
It's amazing that a team that with Denzel Boston, who might be he's going to be a top 50 pick at wide receiver, and Jonah Coleman, who's going to be a top 100 pick at running back, they're not the most feared guys. They're really, really good. But Damon Williams is the guy who stirs the drink for them. Number 6.
Yeah, Denzel Boston, by the way, David Boston's son, David Boston, had a very nice NFL career. He's the 8th overall pick out of Ohio State. So there's some genetics involved. And Denzel Boston is awesome.
David Boston got too big, too jacked in the NFL. Felt like at some point. Number 6, Joey.
I can relate.
I know you can. Number 6, biggest reason for optimism against Washington, Joey. What is it?
I am so quickly reaching Chase Brown 22, Isaiah Williams 23 levels of pick to click. Until it's not, the answer is Luke Altmaier. Because I don't know that either of these teams are going to do much in the way of stopping one another. The rain might stop both of these teams. The rain and the weather might stop both of these teams more than the defenses. That's just kind of what it is. Both live in this bend but don't break kind of environment right now. If you can just keep this thing close, it's going to be a back and forth game, I think. I think you're going to see 2 teams in the 30s, regardless of the weather. I want the dude who's clutch as hell with the football in the fourth quarter. I don't know that I'm not going to suggest that Husky Stadium is not a very difficult place to play. Statistics say it very much is. All of those things. It's a tough environment. Luke Altmaier's been through some stuff. He has seen some stuff at the quarterback position. He's been in tough environments. I'm not trying to say this is the easy environment. It's not. Give him the ball with the chance in the fourth quarter to go win the games. I'm going to trust the dude who's done it time over. So I can tell there's something else so glaring in the matchup that's oh, of course, this is the answer. The answer is Luke Altmaier because he's really freaking good. And I know the games against some of those top 10 opponents haven't been there. That's not what Washington is right now. I think he's got a chance to go and move the ball on this defense and to really come out with, we can say a bounce back game. That feels very cliche, very kind of ordinary, but a chance to really come out and make a statement on the road.
I like this matchup for him. The Huskies are 89th in the country in pressure rate. They've allowed 271 passing yards per game during conference play. They have some really long, athletic defensive backs. Their corners are 6'4" each. Takario Davis is going to be an NFL guy. Alex McLaughlin's been a really solid player, kind of in the Matthew Bailey mold, but they run a lot of zone. Ryan Walters kind of made the same shift that Aaron Henry has in his defense as teams have adapted to them and that single high man stuff. They just don't have the athletes to run that, just like Illinois right now. I like Luke Altmaier going against zone and picking them apart with guys like Hudson Clement and Hank Beatty and Colin Dixon. That's a good matchup for Luke, who reads things incredibly well. And you're right, Joey, against top 10 teams, Luke's kind of played outside himself a little bit because he feels like he has to. And I understand that because he really does have to, but he's forced some things. But against similar teams with very good quarterbacks, he wins. The teams outside the top 10 that 15 through 40s, he beats those teams. He won against Jalen Daniels. He won against Dylan Raiola, Lenora Sellers, Darian Mensah, Jaden Maeva. He usually is the competitive advantage here. So I don't blame you for going for that. My other thing is, Illinois has not been great in the trenches this year. I think they're better than Washington. Washington's offensive line is really banged up, and they've been okay. Their defensive line, solid, nothing special. So I do think this is a matchup where Illinois took on a USC team that was pretty good in the trenches and was able to beat them. I think Illinois can be the more physical team. And I think they can establish in year 5 of Brett Bielema what his identity is of being the more physical team, even though it's been inconsistent so far this year. Washington's still in year 2. Jedd Fisch, they're still building this thing up. They're really reliant on their special skill players. So I do think Illinois has a chance, to do that in this game. The other thing with Washington is they're scary because of DeMont Williams and Jonah Coleman and Denzel Boston. They haven't, if you actually watch these games, they haven't been that impressive. They beat Maryland. They needed to score 24 points in the fourth quarter to beat Maryland. They were down 20-0 against Maryland. Against Rutgers missed so many opportunities in that first half. They should have had a 21-7 lead in that one. Then Rutgers just absolutely imploded. So I just feel like Washington did not play well against Michigan. They did not play well against Ohio State. So they haven't faced the toughest schedule outside of Michigan and Ohio State. And I don't think Michigan is great. So I think they're a beatable team. I don't think this is some unbelievable team. I think USC is better than Washington. It's just going on the road is what makes this one tough. That long trip makes it tough, and DeMont Williams makes this tough. But this is a beatable Washington team.
Yeah, it is. And again, if you just have to look straight up at the variables, at the intangible type thing, it's why you like to have a quarterback who's been starting for 3 years, who's gone on the road in some really tough freaking places to play football,
and not just
and has done well.
Entire team. Yeah, right. I mean, the experience here should help.
Yeah, I mean, you can go down, right? Josh Krutz, Josh Geske, Matthew Bailey, Miles Scott. You can go Dylan Rosiak, Gabe Ackes. They've been in this. They've seen this stuff. Hank Beatty, obviously, at receiver. So I do like that. And Luke Altmaier's brought it up a few times. This is a team that's battle tested. They've been through some of that stuff. And if you're really getting down to a toss-up on the field in terms of how the matchup lies, in terms of the talent, I do feel good about a team that's been through it and has seen some stuff and has gotten out of it.
All right, it's picks to click time, Joey. We'll start with one pick to click on offense, one pick to click on defense. Last week, you picked Joey Altmaier, Luke Altmaier, and Matthew Bailey. Hit one on the Matthew Bailey. He had a fantastic game, so well that Dane Brugler mocked him as a day 2 pick, or at least said he could be a day 2 pick. A nice bounce back performance for him. I did not hit. I had Justin Bullock and Juice Clark. So, Joey, since you hit last week on Matthew Bailey, I'll let you start with our picks to click on offense.
Yeah, I'm just going to stick on theme for what we've been talking about for most of this podcast. I'm going to take Cole Rusk. I like what you saw against Ohio State. I like the connection he has with Luke Altmaier. More importantly, Jeremy, I like the matchup against Washington's defense. Washington allows 6.6 receptions per game and 62.7 receiving yards per game to tight ends this season. Tight ends have 4 touchdowns against Washington. You can go back even to Colorado State. I mean, you're not talking, Ohio State's Max Clare. Jackson Warren at Colorado State, 6 receptions for 79 yards and a touchdown. UC Davis combined 6 receptions for 80 yards. Michigan last week, 8 receptions, 110 yards and a touchdown. Maryland 2 games ago, 11 receptions, 66 yards and a touchdown. There's just enough there where you say, okay, this could be a window for Illinois to attack. And obviously you got a guy right now, Cole Rusk, who's riding pretty good on confidence, who's got the skill set to test some of the bounds of that defense. I'm not trying to make this the Cole Rusk or Illinois tight ends podcast, but the shoe fits in this instance. And I think it's going to be Cole Rusk.
You go right ahead and do that if you want to. I like the pick. I think it makes a lot of sense. Ryan Walters' defenses have always kind of struggled to cover that tight end just because that single high safety gives a lot of space. But I'm going to go with a guy that we've been talking about a lot here. I feel like he's just due, and he had a good game last week against Ohio State. Season high 6 catches for 47 yards. That's Hudson Clement. Because it still feels like he and Luke Altmaier are just a little bit off from those big plays. And some of the numbers really speak to that for Hudson Clement, who's getting a lot of playing time, has 30 targets on the year. But on those deeper ball targets, he has just 6 receptions on 15 targets of 10-plus yards, including 1 drop. He's 0 for 4 on contested catch opportunities. And it's not just his fault. It feels like Luke's just been a little bit off on some of those throws. Hudson hasn't been able to bring him in on some of those leaping catches. But those deeper catches were a strength of his at West Virginia. 29 receptions on 42 targets of 10-plus yards last season. Also had 10 of 13 on contested catches. So it just feels like They've needed time to get that chemistry, to just get on the same page, the same timing, Joey. But when it happens, it feels like Hudson Clement could have a really big day, 70 yards, 80 yards, a touchdown or two. Just feels like they're so close to doing that. So maybe it doesn't happen this week, but it just feels like Hudson Clement and Luke Altmaier are so close right now.
We have been kicking this idea around for a month. I'm with you. I think the way that the offense has come together with Hank Beatty, with Colin Dixon having moments, Cole Rusk, I think is obviously, I think he's on the cusp of one. Just feels like Hudson Clement's that guy who you got to direct attention to so many different places offensively. I like him against his own defense. I like, as you mentioned, his ability to get downfield. That was a really attractive part of his game coming out of the transfer portal with some of those downfield threats against Power 4 competition. I like that. Eventually, he is going to hit, and we are no longer going to have him as the pick to click. But we say that, and I thought he had a good game last week.
Yeah.
Right? He was just there and kind of hanging around a little bit.
Catch that was like that, a target that was just off, right? And if he gets that catch, he has like 80 yards on the day.
That's right. It's happening. You start to see the shape of that coming to be, and we'll see if Luke Altmaier can get him this weekend.
All right, so Joey, Cole Rusk, I went with Hudson Clement. Joe, who you got? Pick to click defense.
Dylan Rosiak's playing good football. We said that on here so much. The stats aren't like, oh my God, Dylan Rosiak's had 10 tackles. Like, that's been Matthew Bailey, to be honest, and just hoarding all of these tackles. But Dylan Rosiak, if you watch him play, he's very decisive in the run game. He's very good about knowing where to be and not pulling the trigger, as Ryan Walters, who is coming back into the picture this weekend, would always say. It feels like Dylan Rosiak's doing that. And I think against a Washington team, Jonah Coleman can run. Big Ten teams have bottomed up a little bit. I like that Dylan Rosiak's that guy in the middle who's going to be decisive with what he sees, especially against a quarterback who can do some option work. I think he's a guy, especially you don't want DeMond Williams to get outside, right? So you ideally, if he's going to take off, you'd like him to take off into the kind of that middle of your defense. Now, Dylan Rosiak's got to bring him down. And that's not a Rosiak problem. That's a DeMond Williams problem, right? But I think he's playing really, really sound football. The thing where you can get him is if you've got tight ends who can go. Washington's a little banged up at tight end, so I don't worry so much about him in coverage. He might get got a time or two, but he's playing really, really sound football right now at that position.
They're a lot banged up at tight end. They're using like an offensive lineman as a tight end right now. So I like that pick. I'll have something on the linebackers here soon. Everything says not to pick this guy because it's not the game where you pin your ears back and get after the quarterback. That's the exact opposite of what you want to do against DeMond Williams. But it's a big game, and his responsibility is to contain DeMond Williams and when he gets an opportunity to make a big play, and that's Gabe Backus. I'm going with Illinois' best defensive player, and outside of Luke Altmaier, right? He's the best player on this team. I know Hank Beatty certainly had a case for that. Matthew Bailey's had a really good year. But Gabe Backus got to make a play or two that really change this game, whether it's batting a ball down, Joey, on a third down, or tipping a ball that leads to an interception, or when you have a chance to get to DeMond Williams to make a play on that ball, because Gabe Backus is a lot bigger than DeMond Williams. So you need to wreck a game somehow. And it might not come in sacks. I doubt it does because it's just not the kind of game where you do that. But when Gabe Backus gets an opportunity on DeMond Williams or gets an opportunity to get into a passing lane, he's got to make a play. I think he's going to have a really strong finish to the season, Joey, against worse teams, against worse quarterbacks, where those numbers are going to tick up. Teams have really been throwing chip help at him, double teams at him to contain him, but also getting rid of the ball really quickly. But still, you need your best player to show up and make his impact on the game. So I'm going to go Gabe Backus.
Yeah, look, I know you're saying turnover, and I don't disagree. Obviously, he's a guy who can create those. To me, a contain is a sexy play in this game. Right? If you just contain him, you're not going to get a single solitary stat, but anyone watching will know if DeMond Williams is getting loose on your side of the field. That's been a spot that you'd like to see a little bit more out of Gabe Backus and his ability to contain. But if the game plan is there for him to not feel like he's got to get up the field and it can just keep DeMond Williams in the pocket, I think that's a win. But there's a way he clicks without having a monster stat line. And I think he could eye test click more than he could stat click.
Him clicking might be getting DeMond Williams to hand the ball off to Jonah Coleman, right? Like that could be a win for the defense. All right, bold predictions, Joey. Last week you had Hudson Clement leading the team in receiving yards. That was really close. Cole Rusk obviously had that. Tommy Wadurjai, 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack. didn't hit there, but I thought Tommy Watt played well. I did hit with my 7+ combined catches by running backs and tight ends. I actually had 12 in that game. Jordan Anderson, Aiden Lawfrey getting in with Cole Rusk. I also had a Miles Scott takeaway, so didn't get that one. But Joey, what do you have for your bold prediction?
Oh, I'm sticking. I feel like a broken record at this point, Jeremy, but I am sticking with the tight ends. I think there are going to be 2 tight end receiving touchdowns. Washington is very much constructed into bend, but don't break right now as Ryan Walters gets the personnel that he needs to run this. So you are going to be able to get down the field. They want to do what Illinois does, is either force a takeaway or bow up in that red zone and don't let a team get through. I like Luke Altmaier's connection with Cole Rusk. I think Tanner Arkin could be a guy who could sneak out there in the flat and be a release valve for him. I mean, I don't know that those big, massive chunk plays are going to be there, but I think Luke Altmaier is patient enough, and this Illinois offense is patient enough to matriculate, take what's in front of them, get downfield. I think when you get in the red zone, I'd like the guy who is as big as Cole Rusk and who is as big as Tanner Arkin to be available options there in the end zone.
Don't mind that pick, Joey. But I'm going to go with not a huge bold prediction, but Illinois going over 140+ rushing yards. I wanted to pick Aiden Lawfrey or Khalil Valentine here, maybe even a Caden Fagan as my pick to click. I just don't know which running back is going to be healthy enough. I don't know which running back is going to get a load of the carries. But Washington's defensive front's okay. Not great. They gave up 149 rushing yards to Ohio State, 187 to Michigan. But even Rutgers, they had 27 carries for 107 yards. They had to throw the ball about 50 times in that game because they got behind. But I do think Illinois, with an offensive line that's got a chip on its shoulder, that's starting to show its physicality against a team like USC, I do think there can be some running lanes. And I do expect Illinois to have a little success on the ground. And to be honest with you, I think Brett Bielema is going to want to show some success and establish some physicality right away.
Yeah, I flirted with the idea of a running back prop, I guess, is whatever it's called, a running back prediction. They're not going to get bored with it. They are going to keep, if the score is there and you don't need Luke Altmaier to throw you back, they're going to keep giving their backs that opportunity. Is this also a game where Luke Altmaier uses his legs a little bit? We'll see, but I like that because I feel like I know they're not gonna give in if the score dictates that they still can run the ball and be successful. So it's a good pick.
Defensive bold prediction, Joey. What do you got?
Well, I picked this number really before you started throwing out the Washington stats with DeMond Williams under 50. So I really feel like I'm kind of cheating my way through this here. But I have that DeMond Williams will rush for 60 or fewer yards. I know. I felt so like when you said that, I was like, I should probably just be quiet and stick with my 60. I really didn't know that you would drop that stat out.
Why I hate that. That's like a borderline. Does Illinois win or not? That's like a toss-up. If you said under 50,
I know
they win.
I know. I really don't get to say a lot, but I still get to say some more. It's a perfect combination. Right now, he's only been held under 60 yards 3 times this season. You mentioned Maryland. You mentioned Ohio State. The other time, or I'm sorry, you mentioned Michigan and Ohio State. The other time was Maryland. This has been something Aaron Henry's done well. He has not let those mobile quarterbacks absolutely break his defenses. I think you're going to see a similar, I know I've said this, you're going to see a similar Lenore Sellers, Jalen Daniels type game plan with DeMond Williams. I think, that is going to be their priority, is keeping him in the pocket, not letting him run like crazy. So I really don't get to tease a win or a loss here, Jeremy, but I do get to stay on my 60.
I'm going to go with, you mentioned linebacker Dylan Rosiak as your pick to click. I'm going to go linebacker interception. There's a linebacker interception for Illinois because one thing about a short quarterback is he struggles to see over the line. And if Illinois is not giving him the throwing lanes and they actually just, try to pressure him, close in on him, get those long arms up, James Thompson, Tommy Wadirajai, Gabe Backus, Leon Lowry, all those guys. Sometimes you can't see those linebackers dropping into coverage. Michigan linebackers had 2 interceptions last week. So I do think there's going to be some opportunities there. Or if you tip a ball, who's going to be there? Most likely a linebacker or safety. So Dylan Rosiak got his first career interception. I don't know if it's going to be him. We haven't mentioned Malachi Hood as a spy potentially. Playing in this game could be really important with his speed. So maybe one of those guys. So I'll go linebacker interception.
I like it. I don't know who it's going to be. I really wanted to put you on the spot and have you drop a name, but I'm going to let you get away with not doing that.
JoJo Hayden. He's my sign guy. So I'll go JoJo Hayden.
All right. I like it.
I think
Really
that
what a callback. What a callback to sign guys.
All right. You got anything else, Joey? We've been having a little bit of internet issues on my end. Thank you, Xfinity. But yeah, we're bearing through this thing. Got any final thoughts before we get out?
No, I'm excited to see Seattle. We're going to have most of the day Friday. If you have any food or a few beer recommendations, that would be appreciated. But I'm excited. Really wanted to go check it out and see it. I know the weather's going to be very Seattle.
Yeah.
But that's okay with me.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, if you have any suggestions about Seattle on the YouTube channel, put those on below. If you're on Spotify, you can comment. We'd love to hear you guys' suggestions for that. I've heard good things about Bellevue if you want to go over there to that side of, they call it a lake to the sound. I don't remember. But yeah, we can head that way and check all that out. We're looking forward to getting in Seattle. But everybody, thank you for listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. Give us a follow, rating, review wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to us, hit that notifications bell, because we'll be here after the game from Seattle with our post-game podcast. That'll alert you of when we start, and you can come and join us as well. But for Joey Wagner, I'm Jeremy Werner. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time on the Illini Inquirer podcast.